So I haven't been in real estate for almost 25 years. I've come across quite a few funny stories, and some PG rated and not so much PG rated. A lot of people ask me, have you had any squatters or issues with squatters over the years? And we haven't had many, but there was one kind of funny story we had from a few years ago. So I had this property for sale. It had just been subdivided and the home was empty. So they'd had the original front home that they'd renovated, and the back home had just been built, and both were empty for sale. So the properties had been staged, so I had all the nice furniture in there, you know, beds and couches and all the different kind of furnishings. Anyway, we're currently on the market. One of the other sales team it was my listing, one of the other sales team had a buyer going through, and when he arrived, he kind of heard some noises inside and thought, oh yeah, what's going on here? So he kind of called out, and this bloke popped his head out, and he's like, oh, and he's like, oh mate, what are you doing? And long story short, this bloke had just kind of hadn't broken in somehow. Well, he'd broken in, but I don't know how he'd actually got in there. Nothing was broken, but he got through a window or something and kind of helped himself, and he'd really kind of settled in. So he had his electric razor set up and all this kind of stuff, and the guy from our salesperson from the office kind of recorded it and just said, mate, you can't be here, you know, you've got to get out. And this bloke apologized and said, oh yeah, okay, I'll get out. Anyway, I did the right thing, and I called the owner later that day, or not long after, and just said, oh mate, just so you know, we did find somebody in the home. We've cleared him out, we've locked it all up. He's told me that he's not going to come back. He didn't do any damage, so look, hopefully that's that. So anyway, a couple of days later, the owner of that home, who also lives in the area, was driving past. And it was a bit later at night, and he saw the lights on. So he thought, oh, that's a bit weird. Don't know of any inspections happening today. I might poke my head in. So he pokes his head in, and sure enough, this bloke had moved back in, and I think this time he was back with his missus. So my client, who is a really top bloke, but he's no nonsense, at that point basically dragged this bloke out to the carport, boot him in the kneecap, I think, from memory, and called the cops and said, come take this bloke away. And look, the cops, you know, came and got him, and that was that. What was interesting afterwards, I was chatting to a copper who was also a client of mine, who happened to be one of the officers who turned up to get this bloke, and in the end, this bloke had just got out of jail, apparently, for manslaughter. So that made the story a little bit more interesting as well. So yeah, anyway, interesting story. Thankfully, we don't come across